Yes, good morning. I'd like to bring the January 5th, 2022 Planning Advisory Commission meeting to order. The official start of this meeting is 9 a.m. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would, please silence or turn off your cell phones. Thank you. I remind those in the audience and those watching on TV that this is the first hearing of any rezoning, text change, or special exception request brought before us today. We will first hear a reading of the staff report for the case by planning staff and ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request or to inquire about said request. The commissioners will have any needed discussion on the case. Once a motion is made and seconded by the commission, a vote will take place and a recommendation will be rendered. The case will go back to the planning department for their independent recommendation. If a favorable recommendation is given, then the case is forwarded to the city council with 2 independent recommendations. If the planning department makes a recommendation for denial, the applicant will have 10 days from the receipt of the letter stating the denial to notify the clerk of council that they are requesting to be placed on the city council's agenda. The city council of Columbus will hold a public meeting, first reading. Said council shall consider the case, review the PAC and planning department recommendations, and hear discussions on the matter. Council will make a final decision at the second public reading called the second reading. I see we don't have any minutes to approve. All right, well, that brings us to our first case of the day, which is REZN 12-21-2347, a request to rezone 0.08 acres of land located at 2807 Bradley Circle. Current zoning is RMF2. Proposed zoning is SFR4. The proposed use is single-family house. Historic Columbus Foundation is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 7, Woodson. We'd like to hear from the Planning Department.
Yes, sir. The general land use for this area is consistent with Planning Area F. The current land use designation is vacant, undeveloped. Future land use designation is mixed use. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 10 trips if used for residential use. The level of service will remain at a level A. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for residential usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning is RMF2 to the north, south, east, and west. 35 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 1 call. I wouldn't say that it's in opposition. It was more for an inquiry, and there was no additional information.
Thank you, Mr. Renfro. Is there any questions from the commissioners with regard to the staff report? Yes, Mr. Dudley.
I just have a question on the zoning and the actual use. I mean, all of the lots in that area seem to have single-family houses on them, right? It's just the whole area was later zoned for multifamily, or?
It was, and whenever they were working on the UDO, I guess back in the early 2000s, those lots were so small, the RMF2 is what met those, so that's what it ended up being.
Okay, thank you.
Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us an overview of your request?
My name's Justin Krieg at 620 Front Avenue. I'm here on behalf of Historic Columbus. We have a historic shotgun house that was removed from another property, and we're aware of this vacant lot. And Mr. Dudley, as you mentioned, there are a lot of single-family small houses around the area, and there's been quite a bit of renovation work that's taken place in that neighborhood. And we found an opportunity to move this house onto that vacant lot to do some infill, and so the intention is to, put it back together, stabilize it as a single-family home, and then sell the property.
All right, any questions, commissioners, for the applicant? All righty.
So your plan, I do have one question, Mr. Derby. Do you plan to take this lot, possibly another lot, and then make it a little bit larger, or are you planning just to use this for one single house?
Just use it for one single house. And so the interesting thing about, I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but
I
those
am.
lots are kind of pie-shaped that are internal to Bradley Circle. And so a shotgun house is a little bit long and skinny instead of short and wide. And so on the site plan that should be included in the application, you'll see that we're taking off the back 15, 20 feet of the shotgun house and using it almost as an addition onto the side to make it more of a cottage instead of a shotgun. That'll better fit the lot size, as well as it'll match up better with the existing houses that are in that neighborhood.
I got you. Now, were y'all involved those other houses that have been renovated in there?
A few of them, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this project? I see nobody coming. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak against it? All right, well, the floor is open for a motion. Yes, Mr. King.
All right, I'll make a motion. Case of REZN 1221-2347, request for zone 0.08 acres of land located at 2807 Bradley Circle. Current zoning is RMF2, residential multifamily 2. Proposed zoning is SFR 4, single family residential 4. Proposed use is single family house. I make a motion that we approve it because it's consistent with general land use in the area.
All right, I need a second. All right, Ms. Thomas. All right, it's approved, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, no, yeah, that's fine. You got to raise the hands. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Forget that part. All right, we're going to move on to our second case of the day, REZN 12-21-2348, a request to rezone .35 acres of land located at 5339 Thomason Avenue. Current zoning is SFR2. Proposed zoning is neighborhood commercial. The proposed use is commercial parking. LR Partners LLC is the applicant. This property is located in Council District 8. We'd like to hear from the Planning Department.
Yes, sir. General land use is inconsistent for planning area F. The current land use designation is single-family, future is single-family residential. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. There'll be no traffic impact. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of the CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact. The site shall include a Category C buffer along all property lines bordered by the SFR3 zoning district. The three options under Category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. There's no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. To the surrounding zoning, to the north is GC, to the south is SFR2, to the east is SFR2, to the west is NC. 30 property owners within 300 feet of the subject property were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received one call in opposition regarding the rezoning, and there's no additional information.
Thank you, Mr. Renfro. Are there any questions from commissioners with regard to the staff report? Yes, Mr. King.
I have a question about the previous owner had tried to rezone it and said something about anything west of the railroad wouldn't be brought into any type of commercial use.
Yes, the
Do you have
previous
any
owner
history on
brought, the person that was in opposition was the previous owner. They brought that up, stating that multiple officials here with the government have told him that no commercial usage would be rezoned past the railroad tracks. This was new information to me. It came to me yesterday afternoon late, so I wasn't able to dig any further into that.
So there's nothing really out there to substantiate that.
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
And when did he say that he tried to do this and was told no? Is this recently?
He said that it had been 15 or 20 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
We look back, our records go to about 2008, our computerized records. We, of course, can pull the files, but all of those are in storage. We usually only keep about 5 or 6 years on hand. We went back on our computer files, and we didn't have any information at that time.
All right, any other questions? Okay, we'll start our second case. In reference to REZN,
Nope, applicant.
oh yeah, I'm sorry, would the applicant please come forward and state your name and address for the record? And please give us an overview of your plan.
Richard Valentini, LR Partners, 1231 54th Street. We own the lot next to this SFR2, and we also own the property behind it as well. And we're just trying to get it rezoned for parking when we open a barbecue restaurant in the front there, so.
All right, is there any questions from Commissioner, Mr. Dudley?
I'm just confused on the location. Is this the taxidermy place?
It's the taxidermy here, and
Right.
then there's a barbecue place here, and it's right behind it. Then there's a vacant lot that we own. I believe it's 80 or 90 foot wide.
Right.
Then there's a house zone NC on this side, and we own that as well. And then there's an apartment complex next to that house. So
Okay, and so you're the barbecue, you own the barbecue place?
we own the taxidermy, the
Taxidermy.
barbecue place, this lot, the lot behind it, and the lot to the right of the barbecue place.
Okay,
The house
and
lot.
you used the lot for parking for the barbecue place?
Yes,
And
sir.
Was there something in one of the documents about using it for storage also, or?
Yes, sir, if possible in the future.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I have one.
Yes, Ms. Brown?
Are you planning on paving that lot when you turn it into parking?
Gravel, so it won't create an issue.
Okay.
You guys have any other questions? Yes, Ms. Thomas?
It's not your plans to build any storage. You said something about storage, and you said you possibly could use it for that. Are you building a storage building on it, or you just going to put a storage building on it?
No, not at this time. We may do that in the future.
Oh, okay then. But would it be a building or one that
It'd
you,
be a building.
you would build it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for this request? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Randy Prather. I'm all for it. I'm the one that's trying to open up the barbecue restaurant.
Yes, sir.
It's going next door.
Does any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Prather?
Do what?
I was asking if the commissioners had any questions for you.
I can't understand you.
Yeah, I was asking if any of the commissioners had a question for you.
No,
Okay.
I have no questions. I'm just all for it.
Yes, Ms. Thomas?
Try to get it rezoned.
All right, I think we have one, Ms. Thomas.
How are you doing, sir? Where do you live in reference to this property?
Where do I live? in
Yeah, do
Richmond?
you live near this property that he's trying
No,
to?
ma'am.
You
I'm the
don't?
one that's trying to open up the little barbecue restaurant.
Oh,
The
okay.
one that's been working on that, trying to open it up and need that area for parking.
All right. Is there any other questions from any commissioners?
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Mr. Prather. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this request? I don't see anybody moving. All right. Well, commissioners, would you like to make a motion? Yes, Ms. Weekly.
I would like to make a motion to approve rezoning request 12212348, located, 0.5 acres, located at 5339 Thomason Avenue from SFR2 to NC. Proposed use is compatible with existing land use.
All right. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Mr. King. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, appreciate it, thank you, it's approved. That brings us to our last case of the day. REZN 11-21-2154, a request to rezone 49.27 acres of land located at 0 Old Guard Road. Current zoning is RE1, proposed zoning is SFR4, and the proposed use is a single-family subdivision. Banana Bay LLC is the applicant. This property is located in Council District 2. If we could hear from the Planning Department.
Yes, sir. The general land use is consistent for planning area A. The current land use designation is vacant, undeveloped. The future is mixed use. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. The property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 1,110 from 469 trips. If used for residential use, the level of service will remain at a level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of the CCG for residential usage. The staff report says there will be no school impact. This case was tabled, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, maybe a month. The Muskogee County schools were here and said there would be some sort of impact. There'd be no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning, north, south, east, and west is RE1. 35 property owners within 300 feet of subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls and or emails regarding the rezoning. As far as additional information, this case was tabled December the 15th. For the applicant to provide a traffic study and or school impact study, and that's everything.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Renfro. Do the commissioners have any questions for the Planning Department?
I have a question.
Yes.
It says it's served by all city services already, but that is yet to be built, I guess, because it's undeveloped, the land. Am I correct?
Say that one more time.
It says that on the application that a property is served by all city services, but because it's a vacant, undeveloped, I'm guessing they still have to connect to the services.
Right, basically that when we say that, all of the city services are available. They just have to be, once they build the property, they will incorporate that into the property.
Okay, thanks.
Is any more questions for planning? Okay, would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us an overview of your request?
Good morning. My name is Austin Gibson. I made a presentation to you all on December 15th regarding this rezoning, and I'm going to do my best to try not to retread the same ground that we covered last time and try to give you all some new information. So as I mentioned, this came before you all on December 15th, and at that time the school district was here and mentioned that there were some traffic concerns and things of that nature regarding school impact and traffic, and they requested that a traffic study and school impact study be done with respect to the property to determine, what effect that would have on the property. And then you all, of course, accepted that request and stated that we should go and obtain that. But, unfortunately, we appreciate, the feedback and the concerns raised, and of course, we fully understand those. But for a couple reasons that I'll outline, if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, we don't think we can do the traffic study as requested, and so we're here today to just request that you all consider our rezoning without the traffic study being done, understanding the consequences of that. So first, to be fully transparent, we spoke with our engineering firm, Moon Meeks, and they recommended a traffic engineering firm out of Noonan, and so we contacted them as well as a couple of other folks to get an estimate and to discuss the traffic impact with them. And so the cost of the study was $20,000. That was the estimate of the cost of the traffic study. And so while cost is not the factor or the reason that we weren't able to do the study, I did think it was important to be transparent with you all and let you know exactly what the cost of the traffic study was going to be and that what the developer would have to pay to get that done. And I especially want to point out that the planning department indicated that the current traffic designation is Class B or Level B. And that level would not change based on this development, despite the increase in trips on Old Guard Road, And so I think part of the issue is we without having the traffic study done, just from speaking with our engineering firm, making some trips out to the site, and just, general knowledge that anybody who goes out on Old Guard Road would have, we know what the traffic concern is. During school drop-off and pickup, of course, the parents coming to pick up or drop off their students queue up on Old Guard Road to be able to turn left into the schools. And so, any other time of the day, you may drive down Old Guard Road and not pass another vehicle. But at that time of the day, specifically in the morning during school drop-off, and then in the afternoon in school pickup, of course, there's significant traffic from the cars queuing to turn left into Old Guard Road. And, unfortunately, last time when we spoke, there was some, commentary about, whether we could put an additional traffic light or roundabout, things like that, to maybe alleviate some of those concerns on Old Guard. But, I think the planning department indicated that wasn't an option because of the proximity of Veterans Parkway. We couldn't do another traffic light so close, I believe was the recommendation. So you're really left with the only option that I can think of, and there may be others, is that Old Guard Road, the problem is that it has one access point, one way in, one way out, and it dead ends at the back. And the only way to fix that would be to extend the road and connect it to an additional existing road. And that's just not something that the developer can do. They, based on this site, that would require, condemnation from the city of some private property, as well as, significant investment, probably millions of dollars, to extend the road to connect to an additional interchange. And that's something that's outside the developer's power to do. And of course, it would be cost prohibitive as well. So the second point I'd like to make is that, if we're talking about Old Guard Road, and unfortunately I don't have the map up on the screen, but you may have it in front of you. Old Guard Road comes off Veterans, and it moves up in a north direction, and then it takes a 90-degree left-hand turn, almost to make an upside-down L. And so the initial spur of Old Guard Road that just went straight up, that's been there for, more than a decade, but approximately 3 years ago, the road that additional left-hand turn was extended over to that property. And so that's only a 3-year-old road. And at that time, when that road was built, it was built in connection with the Greystone development that approximately 300 units that's going caddy corner across the street to this development. And at that time, the road was built, the city, Greystone, a couple of the other property owners, and presumably the school district all had input in what type of road went there. And so 3 years ago, the decision was made not to add dividers to the road or 4-lane or however you want to do it. The decision was made to do the road the way it is approximately 3 years ago. And so I think it's an issue that, that this developer, despite the level of traffic not increasing, beyond the current classification, would be asked to, potentially widen the road, add dividers or something to that effect. And then finally, I wanted to raise a couple of the constitutional concerns that are inherent in a rezoning. As you know, of course, the Georgia Constitution requires that zoning ordinances and rezonings be applied in a reasonable and non-discriminatory manner. And I'm not suggesting in any way that that's not the case here. But I think it's something that we all need to keep in mind because, approximately 3 years ago, this body, understanding that membership has probably changed in the last 3 years, so I don't know which individuals were on the commission 3 years ago, but 3 years ago, this body approved a rezoning of about 60 acres for the Greystone development, which is about 300 units. And at that time, there was no requirement for any traffic impact study, no school impact issues, no conditions at all were placed on that property to my knowledge. And additionally, the schools cooperated with that rezoning in that they allowed Greystone to use part of their property as an additional emergency access route. And so at that time, there was no concerns raised about traffic or any of those issues, despite the 300 units being put in there. And so, of course, our development is approximately 115 single-family units. And so, like I said, I'm not suggesting that there's any ill intent behind these deviations because, I know that 3 years ago the concerns were different. Now we have to consider the traffic from Greystone as at that time, we didn't because Greystone, of course, wasn't there 3 years ago. And so I'm not suggesting that there's any, ill intent or anything of that regard. But I just think it's important to remember that we have to apply we have to apply the zoning ordinances, uniformly to all the different parties who come up for a rezoning. And then finally, I wanted to make a point with respect to state law, which is pretty clear that a rezoning can't be conditioned absent going through the impact fee ordinance requirements on system improvements. It can only be conditioned on project improvements. And so the distinction there is a project improvement is an improvement that would improve the project itself and is reasonably related to the project itself. So as an example, XL, decel lanes into a development, that would be a project improvement because it, relates directly to the project. And this, as opposed to a system improvement, which, as an example, may be, Manchester, if I was before you on a rezoning for Manchester Expressway and you all decided that all of Manchester Expressway needed an additional lane on both sides. Of course, you couldn't make the developer do that because that would be a system improvement that improves or addresses an issue that's inherent to the entire system of that area rather than just the project itself. And so on a project that the planning department has said there's no change in the level of traffic based on classification. Of course, there's an additional increase in number of vehicles. Then I don't think that we can require, because the traffic study is one thing, that's $20,000. That's one portion. But I would assume that, based on what the traffic study says, if the traffic study comes back and says, the X, Y, and Z improvements need to be made, then, the developer may ask to make those improvements as well. And I just don't know that fits the constitutional framework that we have. So for those reasons, we unfortunately decided that we could not do the traffic impact study, and that's why we're back before you today, just to have you consider the rezoning on its merits without having gone through that process. All that being said, though, I know I've rambled a little bit up here, but all that being said, our Kel Bowers, who's the principal of the applicant, he'd like to give a very brief, overview of the project, specifically hitting on the age group that's being targeted and the type of development this is going to be and how that may address some of the school impact and traffic concerns just inherent to the development itself. And so he'll very briefly address that if you all don't mind.
If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Hey, good morning. My name is Kel Bowers. My address is 6053 Veterans Parkway. I wanted to get that up there if possible. All right, good morning, commission members. I hope everybody had a good holiday season. When we last met, some additional information was needed in regard to our proposed age-focused community. Through this presentation, I'll provide you with all the pertinent information which I have at this time, and I hope that the commission will grant a recommendation for approval. If you wouldn't mind going to the next page. All right, in this presentation, I'll summarize the expectations that we have in place for the proposed development, market statistics, and an overview of the property. Additionally, my contact information was listed to the left of the last slide, but that one's unimportant. We can go ahead and move forward. Just one thing before we move forward, I would like to mention that all plans that you guys are looking at today, they're proposed and they could change a little bit based off of engineering and site conditions once we get a little further in. However, what we're looking at today is what we expect to be close to the finished product. So we're pleased to propose an age-focused and targeted single-family housing opportunity in the rapidly emerging North Columbus market. We're striving to provide the active adult demographic with a viable option in the Columbus area, something which is desperately needed in the city. In the senior housing market, we tend to break the different needs categories into three groups: go-go, slow-go, and no-go. Go-go encompasses the active adult sector. These are individuals who are over the age of 55 who are not in need of healthcare-based housing environment or meal services. Slow-go and no-go seniors will both require the availability of medical services or meal services in their housing environment. Our group is aspiring to serve the go-go senior group in Columbus. In the Columbus active adult housing sector, It's important to note that virtually all housing in the senior space is either traditional for-sale housing in non-age-focused communities, nursing homes, apartment buildings, or income-restricted housing. None of these options would be acceptable to the individuals we will serve. We seek to provide an option to those in the 55-up age group who, for any number of reasons, prefer to stay in a home environment, would prefer to conserve their capital, are not looking to invest in a forever home, and would like something new and modern to avoid maintenance, retain lifestyle flexibility, and live in a quality single-family community, not in an apartment building. We believe, especially since COVID-19, that there are a large number of people who would prefer not to live in an apartment building, take the elevator when they come and go, and essentially live in a forced communal environment. Notwithstanding COVID, it's important to remember that most people aged 55 and up have not lived in an apartment since they were young, and the option to be able to continue to live in a home-style community and not have neighbors on all sides and above and below has not been available to this market. So, for those who wish to live in a community which strives to serve the active 55 and up demographic, the choice, until now, has been to make a substantial financial investment or to move into an apartment. We want to provide a new option. If you wouldn't mind going to the next page. Okay. In the Columbus 55 up or senior age group, there are approximately 48,000 individuals, which when considered all as one, is one of the largest demographic groups in the city. Yet they remain critically underserved with quality active adult housing options. Also, an interesting fact you may know is that each day in the U.S., roughly 10,000 people turn 65. This age group also has a minimal impact on its surrounding community in regard to traffic load and school burden. According to the U.S. Census, approximately 6% of seniors have school-aged children living in their home. Based off of these numbers, it can be expected that an active adult community consisting of roughly 115 households could add approximately 10 children to the local school burden. Additionally, our marketing and floor plan selection will be targeted towards individuals who do not have children. A large number of units in this neighborhood will contain only 2 bedrooms, which typically are not an attractive option to families with children. Also, our amenities selection, which I will go over later, as well as our HOA compliance rules, will be strictly targeted towards go-go seniors and would not be attractive to a family with school-aged children. If you could go to the next page. Based on conversations I've had with traffic engineers, a neighborhood of this size would generate an expected 100 car trips per day. These numbers, as I stated, are based on conversations with traffic engineers as well as independent research. With the daily number of trips and the existing 3-lane road, it can be concluded that this neighborhood would create 0 impact on the existing traffic patterns in the immediate area. The AAA, or Foundation for Traffic Safety Survey, has shown that senior drivers drive 35% less than other age groups, which further decreases the amount of traffic that can be expected to come from this community. Lastly, as far as traffic is concerned, the issues present on Old Guard Road are primarily confined to the center turn lane during school pickup and drop-off times only, while the travel lanes remain almost unrestricted for travel. It's anticipated that most residents in this neighborhood will not have school-aged children, and therefore will not be trying to access the school pickup drop-off line and adding to the traffic backup that's present during these times. If you could go to the next page, please. Just to touch a little bit on the floor plans that we're planning to have in this subdivision to show you how they wouldn't really be conducive to a family with children. A neighborhood, all right, so the homes in this proposed development will range from approximately 1,200 square feet to over 1,800 square feet and will be built to Class A, high-end design and quality specifications throughout. Most homes will have a 2-car garage, some smaller units will have a 1, and homes will include such features as 9-foot ceilings, open floor plans, private patios or screened-in porches, granite or similar countertops, Deluxe appliances and fixtures, a combination of wood-style and carpeted floor areas, and a limited number of homes may have a second floor with a caregiver suite for individuals who would like to age in place. Amenities in the gated community will include extensive landscaping, a spacious clubhouse and lifestyle activity center with multiple use areas, such as a fitness center, crafts area, chef's kitchen, and library. Other common area features include a zero-entry saltwater pool, multiple pickleball courts, a large communal patio with barbecue grills, walking trails, a grooming station, dog parks, open green spaces, and rotating exterior art and sculpture exhibits. This community is sorely needed in our growing city by a large number of its citizens, and it will fulfill a necessary service. Another point that's close to my heart as a service-disabled retired staff sergeant from the Army who chose to make Columbus my home after retirement is that this neighborhood could provide the large number of retirees from Fort Benning an option to be able to continue living in this great city. As mentioned earlier, a new service retirees' options are to make a substantial financial investment or to move into an apartment. This is not a possibility or acceptable for many newly retired service members. So they choose instead to leave Columbus and move elsewhere so that their needs can be met. I would like to help Columbus retain these great Americans and to serve our veterans in a manner consistent with what they deserve. This development will create a large number of jobs throughout its construction and will continue to offer employment opportunities to the city through its ongoing operations. Lastly, this development will provide much-needed tax revenue to the schools while placing almost no burden upon them. And if you could just go to the last page. I'd like to thank you all for your time and consideration. I look forward to your decision, and I'll take any questions anybody has.
All right, any questions? All right, yeah, Mr. Dudley.
One for you and then one for the applicant. You talked about having seniors in the 55 to 64 age group being your main target purchasers. Are they likely to be working and then leaving the area and using Old Guard Road in the morning when the school backup is at worst?
No, our target demographic will be the folks that are retired and typically would not be leaving their house at the time that school drop-off is taking place.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am, this will be a gated community.
It will be gated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Yes, Ms. Brown?
Okay, I have several questions. Okay, who owns the property on both sides of the property that you own?
So to the south, the property is owned by Steve Corbett, and to the north, the property is owned by Georgia Crown.
Okay. I'm not a cartographer, so
Oh, no worries.
if your lot is, if your land is here. Yes. Yeah, can you put it on the overhead there?
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm talking about on both sides of your property.
So this property here, this is owned by Steve Corbett, who's a local developer. This property here, of course, is the Greystone development.
Right.
This is a school development. This here is, I believe this property here is also.
Could you use that wireless mic by you? It's right there in front of you. Yeah. On the bottom. It'll come on in about 2 seconds. There you go.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. And then I believe these properties here are, if I'm remembering correctly, these are both Georgia Crown properties, and then this is Vulcan Materials here.
The quarry, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, and where his proposed entry and exit is right there where the Old Guard makes that left turn?
That's correct.
And the property in front of his, like going down, okay, to the right there.
This
Who
little
owns
one?
that property?
Go ahead.
Small individual lot, ma'am, or the?
Well, there's a house there that's been built.
Yes, so the owner of that property,
So they own that whole parcel, though?
So if you give me one moment, I can go ahead and pull up and tell you exactly who owns that.
It's not, that's okay, it's not really,
It would be Sarah Elizabeth, or Sabra Elizabeth Leatherwood that owns
so
that.
that whole little square is owned by one person then? That's
Yes.
where that house is?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's 300 units that are going into, that are, when those apartments are completed. So that's at least 300 cars, maybe 600 if they have 2 cars apiece. But let's give them the benefit that 300 cars. So the traffic is definitely going to increase on Old Guard all times during the day, just because of people coming and going from those apartments.
Yes.
Now, is there, and you know, the emergency road from the apartments has been blocked off. That is not even a consideration for an in or out pattern, because it's not usable. It runs into school property, and so there's one way in those apartments and one way out.
You may be correct. My understanding from talking with the engineering firm was that was just emergency access in the event of a fire or something to that effect.
Well,
They'd be able to use
it's
that.
blocked off, and there's huge stones in front
Sure.
of that now, so it's closed.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, you need to drive over there and look at it, because there's only one way into those apartments and one way out.
Sure.
And there'll only be one way into your subdivision and one way out.
As far as the roadways, that is correct. We will have 2 access points actually entering into the subdivision. I'll show you our. So it's a little difficult. So as you can see, we have the entry on the corner up there.
Right?
And then if you head further down Old Guard Road, we will have another entry point to the subdivision.
Make sure to use the mic.
But as far as roads themselves are concerned, we will only have the one Old Guard Road coming to this property.
Oh, but that other one won't be open?
Yes, we will have 2 access points in and out of the neighborhood.
Right.
But as far as actual street access, yes, we would only have Old Guard Road as our access to the neighborhood.
But then there'll be cars coming out of both of those, and they could be trying to come out during that crowded school.
They could, however, the likelihood, I'm going to say, is slim to none, seeing as we're not anticipating that most of these people will be working, nor will they have children. And also, I mean, I have driven down Old Guard Road during the time when that traffic is terrible, and as, you know, I did say, a lot of that traffic really is constricted to that center turn lane.
Right.
And those travel lanes where people that are just trying to simply get in and out of Old Guard Road remain pretty much unrestricted.
Well, and the thing is, turning left is going to get worse when those apartments open up, and there's constant traffic coming down from those apartments. Okay, the other question, there is I guess this might be for John. There's no way that the schools would have any kind of a in and out off of Veterans to the schools to alleviate that traffic, is there?
Not to my knowledge, there's no plans for that.
Okay. Mr. Gibbs, no, not Mr. Gibson, Mr. Bowers. I know you're going to target this to 55 and older, but that doesn't mean if I'm a young couple with 1 kid that I can't buy a house in here.
That does not. That would be an age restricted, which would say that we have 20% that would not have to be within that 55 and up. However, 80% of the people would have to be.
Right.
The reason why we're trying to stay away from totally restricting it to 55 and up is, like I stated earlier, the retirees from Fort Benning, a lot of them will not have reached that age of 55. However, their children have already moved out of the house. They're trying to stay in Columbus, and we want to provide them with an option.
Right.
So,
But if I had a small child and I wanted to move into those houses and I was younger than 55, I could buy one.
as it stands now, correct.
Right.
If you
Because,
wanted
you
a
know,
2-bedroom house.
This would be a very desirable neighborhood if I did have 1 or 2 small children and I could walk my children across the street to the elementary school or to the middle school. When
Yes.
you build by a school, that is a real plus, in my opinion, for people that have children, because you want to be close, and these are new schools, and they're at capacity, so this could create a problem with more kids that will need to come to the schools, and then you may have children trying to cross the street.
Yes, I mean, that is always a possibility. However, like I said, we're going to be making this neighborhood so that it is attractive to the 55 and up demographic, not necessarily the demographic that would have kids. I have 2 kids of my own. I can tell you I would not want to live in a 2-bedroom house, nor would I want to live in a neighborhood that has HOA restrictions that would be like, I can't have toys out in the front yard, I can't have,
Right.
I don't know if anybody here has ever been to the villages in Florida. We'd be essentially trying to stick to something similar to that, where you have the HOA restrictions in place that make it so that it's comfortable for your 55 and up community.
Right.
But it wouldn't be a great place to bring, your children if you wanted to live there.
And I think one other reason that we haven't gone the full deed restriction is we've done a little bit of preliminary research into the law on that, and I'm not totally sure that Georgia law would allow you to do an age restriction of that nature on a single-family residential subdivision of these lots. I know you can do it on condos and things like that, but I'm not totally sure that it's legal to do it specifically on a subdivision like this.
Well, and that was my concern, because I'm telling you, it's very desirable to live close to a school if you have small children. And some people like having covenants and restrictions because they know that's a way to keep the neighborhood looking nice, and if you're buying a new house, that's the kind of thing that you're attracted to.
Sure, it's certainly possible. Without that restriction, we don't have any real control other than how we market and how we build out the development. We won't have any control without a restriction.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. King?
I do have one question for you. Price ranges and HOA, is it going to be the type of HOA where each person pays their own fees and then it's all taken care of?
Yes, this would be
Old Town?
Yes, so where they pay their HOA dues and all the exterior work is taken care of for them, essentially.
Are there any more questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Dudley.
I'm not sure if this is for the applicant or for the city, but the applicant mentioned the city's traffic analysis as indicating it wouldn't change the level of service for the road, but at least the analysis we have only looks at veterans because they don't have any traffic studies for Old Guard Road, right? And also certainly wouldn't have any studies taking into account the impact of the Greystone development that's still being built.
Yes, that's my understanding. The analysis the city does is restricted to the impact on the main artery veterans
On
there.
veterans. Okay, thank you.
Yes, is there any more questions for the applicant? Would a commissioner like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yes, Mr. King.
All right. With regards to case number REZN 11-21-21-54, request for zone 49.27 acres of land located at Old Guard Road, currently zoned RE1. Proposed zoning is SFR 4, single-family residential 4. Proposed use is single-family subdivision. I would make a motion that we approve this case as it is consistent with planning area A.
Anybody like to make a second? Yes, Ms. Thomas. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those against? Is it 3-3?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-2.
4-2.
All right.
All right. That passes. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I may have been slow on the update. 4-2 in which direction? I didn't catch that.
4-2 approved.
Approved, yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Hope you all had a great holiday.
All right. Would the commissioner like to make a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Ms. Thomas. All right. No, we don't have any more cases, so this meeting is adjourned.